Do you have a well thought out design for your studio? Do you have completed construction documents for your studio that you could easily use for yourself or for a contractor? Do you know how much you want to spend on this studio? Do you know how much your studio is going to cost down to the dollar? If you don't know the answer to one or all of these questions, you're not alone. In this video, I'm going to go over the 3 fatal mistakes that wannabe studio builders and designers make before starting their studio. And I'm going to also help you to make sure you don't make those 3 mistakes and then give you solutions on exactly what I do as a professional studio designer and what you should do as well to make sure you build the studio of your dreams. Hi, I'm Wilson Harwood, and I am a professional studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, Tennessee. Today, I'm going to break down those steps for you. Before we jump in, I always give away a free resource for those of you who are on this journey and trying to learn more. Check out my free soundproofing workshop. You can watch it right away at soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. It's 45 minutes of in-depth teaching, giving you everything you need to know about how to build your home recording studio. Again, to watch that, just go to soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. All right, let's dive in. Mistake number 1 is the eager beaver, as I call it. We all know what an eager beaver is like, and in the studio design, it's what you're probably thinking. It's the type of person who is like, give me a hammer, give me a nail gun, let's get to this right away. It's the type of person that is, looking at my YouTube videos, maybe watching other people's YouTube videos, maybe perusing the Roger Weiss home recording studio book, but soon enough you get bored, you're annoyed with this, and you're like, let's build this thing, I'm tired, I want it now, and I want it right this second. That is the eager beaver. And if you have all of that or some aspect of that in you, I request that you try to notice it, become aware of it, and try to not let it drive your whole studio build process. Because I even have clients like this. I'm sorry if you guys are out there, I love you, but this is an issue with the studio design process. If I'm over here trying to design a perfect design, working through all the aspects of it with my client, and they're like, just give me the design already, or I'm just gonna start building and then give me the design afterwards because they can't have the patience to do it, that is a problem, and it's a huge fatal mistake for your studio. Do not be an eager beaver. Mistake number 2 is the budget piecemeal. Yes, these are the people that tend to say, hey, I don't have all the money now, but no big deal. I have a job. I can make money. I'm going to make some money. I'm going to buy some drywall. I'm going to put up the drywall. Oh, I ran out of money. Now I'm going to make some more money, and I'm going to buy a soundproof door. Oh, I'm out of money. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to make some more money, and I'm going to finally be able to pay for the electrical. This is not the way you want to approach your studio. And again, I'm sorry out there if you're that type of person, or maybe we're working together and you're that type of person and you've given me a lot of wisdom about this process. But if you do not have the full budget ahead of time, if you don't have the cash in the bank and know exactly how much you want to spend on this project, then you should not start building. This is something I'm working on as a professional studio designer, is to help people through this process, because it's easy enough for me to be like, okay, yeah, oh, you want to jump? Oh, you want to start building? Okay, and I wasn't really good at the beginning of my career of saying, no, we're going to finish the plans first. And I guarantee you nowadays, it's all about the flow of the design, the pre-thinking process, then we go to build mode. Yes, there might be subtle tweaks, and then we go into finishing mode and you have your studio. It's a very simple process when you do it that way, and that's the way it should be done every time. Mistake number 3 is the chaos drug. Yes, we've all popped that pill before. This is the drug addiction of just loving chaos. It's kind of your shadow side, if you've gone into the psychological research of this before. But basically, a lot of us, and maybe all of us, have some aspect of us that we love chaos. But we can't let that aspect of us take over our studio design, because there's no room for chaos when you're dealing with a super big budget, an extremely difficult and detailed construction process. There's no room for the drama of like, let's just see what happens. Let's just start. Or I'm going to make things subconsciously really complicated and difficult for myself because it feels like I'm really doing something. So be aware of this subtlety in your own design process of not letting chaos take over and just the free living, I'm going to jump into the deep end of the pool sort of mentality. I wouldn't recommend it when it comes to designing your home recording studio. So now let's talk about the solutions. I've given you the 3 fatal flaws, and now you have an idea of maybe, oh man, I think I might be doing some of that. So what should you be doing? Now, I've been doing some coaching myself, having a coach, and it's been helping me a lot with my own mindset. And one of the main things I've learned is that you have to fall back on your systems, not your goals. So we're only as good as our systems. And in this case, you need a solid system of how to build a home recording studio. And let me give it to you here in six very simple, easy steps. So number 1, brainstorm your dream studio. This is the easy part, but some people might not even do this. I think I wasn't quite as good at this as I should have been, but take time to write down everything you want in your studio. Journal about it, think about it, go to Pinterest and pull a Pinterest board together, make a vision board, if you've heard of those, of your studio, because all these things are going to help you visualize something that doesn't exist yet. And this is the most important part of design, is having the vision in your mind that you can then put to paper. Another thing that you could do is, like, Andrew Masters has that great channel of like epic home studios. Like, watch his channel and make a playlist of studios that you love, aspects of it that you love. Put in your journal, hey, I love this about this studio. I hate this about this studio. Doing that sort of work for maybe even a month or 2 could be really helpful before you even get into the nitty gritty of like, how many layers of drywall do I need? Or should I use green glue? Don't worry about that at this step. This is all about dreaming big and refining your vision for your studio. This is the stuff that I can't even really do for you. I can bring what I like about studio design, but as a client, you have to bring in what you like about the studio. And I'm always blown away when a client's like, oh, I love this light. And I'm like, that's so cool. I would have never thought about that. I love that idea for you. Number 2, success strategy is know your budget. And I'm not talking about like I get on calls all the time with people and I'm like, hey, what's your budget? They're like, I don't know. I don't really, I don't have a budget yet, but it doesn't really matter to me. And I always ask them this question. I go, well, if I told you your studio is going to cost you $75,000, would you do it? And they go, no, that's way too much. I'm like, well, then you have a budget. So do this. Ask yourself right now, if I had a studio for $20,000, could I do it? And if you're like, nope, then you don't have the budget for that. How about 50? Nope, then you don't have the budget for that. How about 75? How about 100? How about $150,000? If I tell you your studio is going to cost you $150,000 and you don't have a visceral like, oh, that's painful, then it means you could probably afford to do it. And knowing that budget first is important, because we can go into the details and add up the number of drywall, the amount of screws you're going to use, the cost of the mini split, the cost of hiring. We can do all that. But until you know in your gut like what you're willing to spend on it, what you truly emotionally can afford, there's really nothing we can do. Because if you come to me and you say, hey, $20,000 feels like it's unachievable, I would say, great, now we know. I would tell you politely, hey, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. You might be able to build a studio for $20,000, but it's going to be tight. But at least you know in your mind, like, I need to think bigger before I can build the studio. I need to work on like my max budget. The next step is to design. So you've got your brainstorming, you've thought through like, what's the maximum I feel comfortable spending? Now you can jump into the design phase. This is not the build phase. You're not spending any money unless you hire a designer, but this is the phase where you're like, okay, I'm going to actually put some ideas on paper. And this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, because here, you really need to start thinking through the design critically. This is where you not only look at like the beautiful lighting and the cool aesthetics of the studio, but you start to think about like, okay, here's a beam in my garage. How in the world am I going to soundproof around this beam? Or how am I going to get an HVAC duct in for ventilation? Have I thought through my ventilation system? What about electrical? How am I going to do electrical? Do I want to do a star grounding? Do I want to do surface mounted electrical? Do I want to have flush mounted electrical with putty pads? These are all questions you need to figure out in this stage, and it needs to be written down on paper, whether that's by hand, just drawing things out the old-fashioned way, or what I would recommend doing is, if you're going to DIY this, learn SketchUp. It's going to be the easiest, or learn something like AutoCAD or Revit if you have more time or more technical in nature. Those programs are powerful, but I do everything in SketchUp right now. So like, you can make professional studios in SketchUp. Yes, there's a learning curve, but I highly recommend that you go in and actually start to figure out like, how does this piece of wood connect? How is this drywall going to connect? How am I going to fit all these pieces together so that when you go to your contractor or do it yourself, you have a plan in place and you're not just winging it. All right, now that you have the plan in place with your doing your CAD design or you're drawing out on paper, the next thing is to get construction plans. So number 4 strategy for success is construction plans. And this is just taking maybe like a 3-dimensional CAD drawing and turning it into 2D construction plans. If you don't know how to do this, that's okay. I would still recommend maybe paying someone on Upwork or somebody to make you construction plans so that when you're doing it yourself, you have them on site, you can look at them and you're like, okay, this is what we do here. Or if you're going to hire a contractor, the way that they do it in the construction industry is you get plans and then you bid the project to like 3 or 4 contractors. So with construction plans, you can begin the bidding process. So you can go in and say, hey, how much are you going to charge for this? You might get 3 contractors. One of them bids you at $75,000, one bids you at $50,000, and one bids you at $25,000. And then you get to decide, do I want to pay this much, what are the pros and cons? But that way you then have the bid, which is the true now budget estimate based off of what you originally said. Hey, if my gut reaction budget was 50 grand and I just got a bid for 50 grand, we're in alignment, So you see how this works? Now, if you get a bid back and the bid says, oh, this project is 50,000 and you only wanted to spend 30, well, then you go back to the drawing board. No big deal. You go back to your designer or whoever made your plans, or if you made your plans, and you start saying, okay, how do we make it smaller? What do we do? So there's got to be a sequence here where you actually are starting to design and create and finding out your budget and having all your goals and your vision in place, all in a stepping order here, rather than just like chaos. So number 5, I already talked about, but it's bidding the project. So you have your construction plans and then you go in and bid the project. Number 6, wherever that is, 6, is just going to be checking on the construction as you go. If you're doing it yourself, you'll obviously be able to check as you go. But if someone else is doing the work for you, if you have an electrician, you need to double check. If you're doing HVAC, you need to double check. Hey, did they just put a huge hole in my wall? Did they put putty pad around it? You need to be in charge of your project as it's being built. And that's the sixth step for success in my system. And once that's done, if you've done all 6 of those steps, I guarantee you will have a professional level home recording studio. And for those of you who are like, I don't need a professional level home recording studio, I encourage you to dream bigger. Do you want a semi-professional or amateur or mediocre home studio? I hope you dream bigger. Every one of you should want to have a professional home recording studio. It's totally doable. It's totally possible. So shoot higher. That's definitely the case. So in conclusion, let's review. So first off, don't be an eager beaver. Do not do the budget piecemeal approach. And third, do not take that chaos drug. I encourage you not to live in chaos. Then follow my 6 steps to success. Again, those were: number 1, brainstorm your vision. Number 2, figure out your overall budget, whatever is comfortable with you, gut instinct budget, not like to the line item budget. 3, start to design and actually put pen to paper and make your design. 4, create construction plans that you can then at least get a general bid from a contractor. 5, actually bid those construction plans out and get some feedback on how much this thing is going to cost. 6, once you hire and you find the perfect contractor, double check their work on a regular basis through key steps of the process and make sure it's done right. Because ultimately, you are the one that's going to know better than anyone else exactly what needs to be done. All right, if you've enjoyed this video and it's opened your eyes to something that maybe you are doing, maybe a fatal mistake you might be committing, definitely check out my free soundproofing workshop to take this to a next level. If you're on this DIY path, there's many of you out here who are like, I'm never going to hire anybody. I want to do this myself. And I can't argue with you. I did the exact same thing when I built this studio right here. So if you're doing that, just check out the free soundproofing workshop. It can't hurt. It's just at soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. For those of you who are a little bit beyond the DIY, who value your time, you value your money, and you know that hiring a professional is the right approach, check out my Soundproof Clarity Call on my website. Just go to soundproofyourstudio.com, click Clarity Call, and you can fill out a short questionnaire. And then if you're a good fit, you'll have a Zoom call with me in person, and we can talk for 30 minutes and just literally go over everything you're dealing with on your project and decide if we will be an awesome team for making your dream studio. So if that feels like you, go ahead and do that right now. No delay. I will take you through the process. All right, everybody. I hope this video was super helpful. I had a lot of fun making it. This is wisdom I have gleaned over my years of being a soundproof studio designer and acoustician, and I hope it helps you along your journey too. Thanks so much. I'll see you all next week.